Good morning, everyone. This is RafeCal, and we are playing some Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise Randomizer. This video is going to be a little different than a lot of the other ones I've done, because my intention with it is not going to be to do a typical race. I want to take the time and actually walk through the game in a little more detail, talk about everything, talk about some of the numbers, kind of an introductory video for people who might not be familiar with it. I feel like I generally do a decent job talking through everything, but there's a lot going on, and I know that I generally don't get to everything, so for people who haven't played before and might be interested, they don't have a good starting point. So, I'm going to start out by talking about this intro screen, because I don't really talk about it a ton outside of what the specific objectives are. So, on the current version of the randomizer, you get to see your starting character next to the new game icon, which we apparently have a Fusoya, which is ridiculous. We have our objectives listed here. And if you scroll down, it will show you all of the flags associated with this mode. So you can see there it says you have to do those 5 quests. All of them are required. When you do that, you get the crystal. Key items, it has all the main ones plus plus the summon bosses, which is the the bosses in the Feymarch area, plus the Odin throne under Baron Castle and Bahamut on the moon. And then moon bosses, which are the altars where the special items at the end of the game are hidden. Let's see, the pass. P is pass, is a key item. Characters are relaxed, which means we can get an edge into Fusoya really easily. And they have J abilities on. Treasure, we're leaving as wildish. Wildish means that everything is weighted, so the harder to get to locations have a better chance of giving good items, but there is a higher chance of getting, but all of the items are slightly better quality than they would be normally. I think this is a really good flag for feeling powerful and being able to progress through the game. Shops are standard. I don't feel like you need wild shops. I feel like standard shops generally do a pretty good job. That means they're still weighted so that the underground shops are better than the above ground shops, but it also means you can get things like sirens and other J items, which we'll talk about more later. Let's see, bosses are standard, except the gauntlet, which is replaced with the alt gauntlet. We'll get to that when we get to it. We have a couple glitches on the warp glitch, which lets you skip the sealed cave. The life glitch, which lets you get more XP from enemies by using a life potion on them. And Sylph, which means Sylph doesn't cost MP as long as you have MP to cast it. We're starting with a basic kit. There's no adamant armor, and the spoon can be equipped to Edward. Enemy encounters you can toggle on and off. So yeah, that's pretty much the majority of it. I actually don't remember what N key is offhand. Oh well. So the other thing over here is you can do custom or names. Custom, it can be nice because you can reset your stuff, so like I usually turn off flash effects before I go in, so I don't have to do that while I'm on the clock. The whole point of this game is to get through it as quickly as possible. It is built as kind of a race engine, even if you're just racing against yourself. And the goal isn't necessarily to get, the ultimate time, it is to be efficient. It is all about figuring out ways to be efficient. So, with that in mind, we are going to start our new game. When you start a new game, you have your starting character, which we know is Fusoya. We're going to get one other character here, Sid. Good start, old man start. We can see here there's a boss. This is going to be the boss that's at the Baigen spot inside Baron Castle. So we know the first boss in Baron Castle is either going to be Rubicount or the Elements fight. Both of those use the same icon. And we get the pass. The pass gets used at the end of the game to go fight Zeromus if you're not going through the moon. We get our supplies. This is the basic kit that I had marked down. So that's Life Potion, Cure 2s, Star Veils, and Tents. They give you the Star Veils because there's a few bosses that if you don't have Star Veils can basically just kill you instantly. And from there we go to the Enterprise. Hence the name Free Enterprise, because you start with the Enterprise airship. So I have a bunch of notes here. Oh, and then it goes through and tells you your objectives again, just in case you missed them. So launch the Falcon. I guess I probably should have talked about that. So launch the Falcon. I'll go through these and then pull it up on the other place you can get it. So he goes through and tells you. So if you go to the menu here and go to track, it'll show you your key items and it'll also show you your objectives again. So our goals are launch the Falcon. Launch the Falcon means we have to get the hook and then go through the Eblin Cave into the underground. Complete the Giant of Babel. We need to get the Darkness Crystal, travel to the Giant of Babel, and beat the bosses. Break the Dark Elf's spell. That means you have to go get the Twin Harp and go to the Magnus Cave. Kokol has to forge the Legend Sword with the Adamant. That means we need to get the Legend Sword and the Adamant out of the key item pool, and then take that into the underground to have Kokol forge Excalibur. And then we need to return the pan to Yang's. This means we need to get into the underground with the pan, take it to the Sylph Cave, wake Yang up, and then go back to Fubul and give it to his wife. So, part of the early game is going to just be recruiting characters. The other part is going to be finding key items that can give us access to our objectives. So early game, our primary objective is to get a way underground. That'll open up the rest of the game. The pass is good just to have, but it doesn't count as a key item for our count. 0 out of 17. And it also doesn't give us access to anything else on the surface. So that means we have to just rely on our free checks. Now, the good news is that we have some ridiculous starting characters. Fusoya is very powerful. Let's see what his starting spells are. He doesn't start out super powerful, but he is level 50. So his stats are at least good. Because of the flag set that's on, we do not have vanilla Fusoya. That means that he starts out weaker than a standard Fusoya would be. Every time we kill a boss, he's going to learn 3 random spells, and he's going to get 100 hit points. So that means once we've killed 13 bosses, he's going to max out his hit points at 1800. And I believe that's about when he's going to get all his spells as well. They put this in as a balancing factor and to give you alternate rewards for beating bosses. Sid starts at level 20, which is really good for early game characters. Second highest, I believe, or third highest, besides Edge and Fusoya. Now, unlike Edge and Fusoya, he starts out with pretty mediocre equipment, but he's still powerful enough to kind of carry through a lot of the early bosses. We're going to put him in the middle here, because the character in the middle slot gets a bonus to accuracy. It's a minor thing. It's not usually super important, but Sid, you can see there, when you go into his status menu, his weapons often have a medium accuracy. 80% is pretty low. A lot of this stuff with attacks doesn't really get explained ever in the game and doesn't really come up in the main game that much, but you can see there his attack rating says 3 times. That's a rating based on his strength. So whenever he attacks, what's actually happening behind the scenes is it's making 3 attack rolls at 80%. And the damage value in the end is going to be determined by how many of those hit, and then a slight sliding scale to randomize damage. So putting him in the middle increases the chances that all 3 of his attacks will hit. Now, none of that gets shown in the game. That was actually a carryover from the NES games. So, as I said, we're talking a lot more and explaining a lot more than I normally would. We haven't even moved. So there's a couple places that a lot of people start out with their exploration. Now, some people traditionally would just go to Baron immediately. You're right here anyway, right? Why wouldn't you? Well, the reason you don't go to Baron right away is because the treasure there is not that good. We're on Wildish. Wildish means that certain places have higher value treasure than others. So, first thing, the treasure there's pretty mediocre compared to some other places. The second thing is we have pre-character zone. That means that we can get characters. That means that we can save ourselves a trip later, because one of the things at Baron is the Baron Inn, which requires you to fight something. We don't have a full party, we don't want to fight that bad. And the third reason is because if we're coming back here anyway, we want to be able to buy things at the Baron's shop. That means that we want to be able to get money first. Now, I'm going to go slightly against what I just said, because we're actually going to start off here in Mysidia. Mysidia? So, Mysidia, we're going to check 2 things right off the bat. Now, this place does not have much in the way of actual items to pick up. So what we're doing is checking the shop. We can see here there's vampires and kamikazes. Eagle Eye is not relevant. Vampires are a really good item early game if you don't have a good damage source. We do have a good damage source, so we're not worrying about that. Kamikazes, what it will do is use the bomb effect on your character. So it sacrifices the character and they do damage to an enemy. That's really only useful in one situation. Occasionally, it'll just come up if you just need to do a little more damage, but the main use of it is against one of the bosses, Plague. You need to be able to quickly kill a character and resurrect them in order to get him to reset his count. We'll get into that when we actually get to the Plague boss. Usually, when I'm shopping, I will try and, if I have the money for it, I will buy 1 kamikaze. Now, I don't need that right now. Weapon and Armor Shop is available here if we wanted to check it. I'm not super worried about the Weapons and Armor Shop right now. And then we go up here and we talk to the Elder and get a character. Actually, we get 2 characters. We have an Edward and a Cecil. Edward is not great. We're gonna pop in here to talk about them real quick. So Edward has one good thing going for him early game, and that's the fact that he can actually equip bows. He actually gets a very high agility rating as the game progresses. You can see there he's at the same agility as Sid, even though he's 15 levels lower. But his HP is super, super low, and his strength is super, super low. Which means that he ends up being pretty mediocre overall. We are going to probably replace him, because while it is fun to play with the spoon flag, probably not going to come up. Dark Knight Cecil is not great. The main reason is because he has really limited equipment that he can use. The game was programmed in a way so that basically they assumed that that all of the equipment that was available after Cecil turns into a paladin would only be equipped once he turns into a paladin. So they limited it all so that you can only equip like 3 items as Dark Knight. This means Dark Knight is really weak, because one of the things you have going for you in this game is the fact that you can get equipment earlier than you normally could, like special equipment, and get access to a bunch of really cool stuff that lets you power up and fight bosses that you shouldn't be able to fight. Okay, so that's Mysidia. We've checked the shop, and we've checked we check the shop, and we check the characters. Second place we're going to go is the Watery Pass. Now, the reason we do this is because this is a high value point for treasure. It is not like the highest, it is just a high early game area. It also has a character, if 3 characters are turned on. So there's 2 options here. We could theoretically continue deeper into the... However, that means we'd have to walk back out. Archer Bow and Samurai are pretty good. So, since our Fusoya does not know exit, and we don't have an exit item, we're not going to walk through the cave. If I had a Tella who starts with exit, or if our Fusoya had exit, then I would consider. However, what we can do is pop over here. Just to pick up those 2 chests. Now, that isn't the most time-efficient thing to do, but it can be good if you have a lot of characters who require equipment. So that would be people like Kain, Sid. Okay, Kain and Sid are the main ones who are very equipment-reliant. Next thing we're going to do is check Kaipo. Typically, you would park between Watery Pass and Kaipo, but I forgot. So that was not an efficient play. Now, you don't have to do Kaipo check. We see here there's another Fusoya in the bed. So if we get the Sand Ruby, we know we can get a second Fusoya. And I accidentally walked back in. And then Kaipo also has an item. When I go in here, I actually stand right at this corner until the lady turns around so that she doesn't walk down in front of me. It's a minor thing. So we're going to sell the Poison Axe because it is an expensive item that is generally not super useful. It has a very low accuracy rate. We're going to sell 1 Full Moon because Edge will hopefully, if we put up an Edge, will have better weapons available by the end. And then we're going to keep the rest. But we're going to use that to buy a couple extra Star Veils, because Star Veils are good. I'm gonna pull up my little note sheet that I have here. I had written down here, depending on what kind of strategies you're using and what you're looking at, generally you will want somewhere between 5 and 10 star items is probably about what you're usually going to need. I'm also going to take this opportunity to set up my inventory. Inventory management is actually a kind of important thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch, put the sword over here. I wish they just kind of defaulted the sword to a higher location, but they don't. So putting the sword up at the top means that it's a lot easier to access. That's all. It means you don't just scroll all the way down every time you want to sort your inventory. So that's all we're doing. This spot right here is the kind of halfway point between the Watery Pass and Kaipo. So if you're doing both, you can just park the airship here and then then skip the animation of having to go back into the airbase. Next place we're going to check is Damcian. Damcian has some early treasure. And is also going to give us a character and unlock the hovercraft. Now you can see there, I also made sure I checked the pots. And then we're going to exit off the side. Damcian technically is another location that you can skip depending on what your party and equipment looks like. And you only get a character if free characters aren't on. Or if free characters are on, rather. I'm gonna Yang. Okay, Yang is okay. Yang is not good early, though. So right now what we've got 2 Sids. We are going to switch Yang for Edward. So we're going to go ahead and dismiss Edward. And we are not going to take his equipment, because his equipment is not good, and it will clutter our inventory. Yes, we could technically sell it, but it doesn't sell for enough to be worth it. Okay, so we're just going to park it over here, and then hop back in the airship. If you want, you can technically use that to go over to the Antlion Cave right here, but we're okay with skipping that for now. So right now we have a very physical party. We're going to go ahead and do our Sids and our Yang in the front, and leave Dark Knight Cecil in the back because he's kind of weak. Now, you may notice that we haven't equipped any of the items that we picked up. This is where we get into that efficiency aspect. The goal in general is to minimize how much time you spend in the menu. Or one of the goals is to minimize how much time you spend in the menu. That's one of the things that is the difference between people who are good at this game and people like me who open the menu too often. I'm usually pretty good about it compared to you, or how I used to be, but that's kind of where we're at. Part of this game is going to be learning how to be efficient with things like that, and also with knowing what equipment is good, what equipment you can sell, what equipment is worth keeping around. So we're going to do that. We're going to get all of the treasure chests, and now we're going to finally open up the inventory. So the first thing we're going to do with each character is equip the bow. And the reason we're doing this is called the back row glitch. If you equip a bow, and then equip a melee item over top of it, it's going to allow the character to do full damage, even if they're attacking an enemy in the back row, or if they are in the back row. Now we're going to give one Sid all of our good stuff pretty much starting out, and that's because he's going to be the one doing all the damage. I also just realized it should have been the one in the middle. That's also going to get that accuracy boost. We're going to give this second Sid actually just equip the bow. And I don't think we have anything else with equipment. Yang, we have an Ice Claw. And I don't think we have anything new for Fusoi. Now, if you ever don't know what the stats on an item are, you can see here, pushing select will toggle a menu that will show you. It shows you the accuracy of the item over on the right, and it shows you the power of it. It'll show you any other traits like resist undead on this wizard, and then it'll show you the +5 to will. Sorcerer Robe is really, really good. You can see there +5 to both Wiz and Will. Wisdom and Will are the casting stats. I can never remember which one is which. I am terrible about it. Let's see, do we have anything? Yeah, mute it. Okay. So, Wisdom is the black magic stat. Will is the white magic stat. So you can see here the wizard headpiece increases your will. It is a white magic item. It's a good thing to keep in mind while you're looking at stuff. Okay, we're gonna save before we go in. Now, normally I would want to be at Antline about the 7-minute. That's how slow we're going right now. I'm okay with that. This is gonna be a long video. We're going to literally look at 100%ing the game. We're gonna beat every boss, fight every boss, get every key item, explore every site. This looks like it is the guards. So this is a pretty easy early boss. We're just gonna use a big bomb. Items like bombs are really useful early because these spots have pretty low hit points. Now we're going to try and do enough damage to kill this officer as well, because the officer has the majority of the experience. If we were at a harder location, those enemies are really useful because they're regular enemies. They're susceptible to status effects and instant death. That means that if we had items like coffins or hourglasses, we can just make them an inconsequential fight. The way it works, the officer is the one who actually controls the other enemies. When it's his turn, he'll say attack, and all 3 attack. If you kill the officer, the rest of them just stop attacking. Antlion spot that we just killed has 1,000 hit points, that's it. It is easily the weakest spot in the game, or one of the weakest spots in the game. Low physical attack, or low physical defense rather. So, pretty straightforward here. We're just gonna get a little experience, and we get a key item. So yeah, learns Ice, Toad, and Hold. And we get our Adamant. That'll be good. That's contributes toward our objective, but it's not actually progress. It doesn't unlock. When I say progress, I mean it doesn't open any other locations for us to check. There's a small list of overworld locations that are always available from the start. Antlion Cave is usually the first one people do because it is the easiest boss. If you had a really strong party and you had other objectives that you could do first, that's usually what you'd do. So I like to try and make a little loop. That's kind of efficiency of moving around on the overworld. Next place you can check is Hobbs. Mount Hobbs is not a key item location. This is a character-only location. So we can see here, this is a cane, and it is a blue-robed enemy. Now, you have one tile here where you can stop and turn around. So, that's either going to be Water Hag, or it's going to be the Fabul Gauntlet. If it's the Fabul Gauntlet, that's going to be a really long check. And Kane is a good character, but we don't have any equipment for him at this point. So my thought is actually going to be to just turn around. We can come back here if we want a Kane later. Hint, we're probably going to want a Kane later. But Sid gets a lot of levels early on, or starts at higher level early on, so just having those Sids tanking for us is going to be good. The next place we would typically check is Fabul. Now, Fabul is kind of weird, because a lot of people skip it. The reason you skip it is because if you get underground access, you can go to the Sylph Cave, and that will unlock an extra item in Fabul. So if you get an early way underground, you can go back to Fabul and basically get the check for free. We're going to stop and check at Fabul still. And part of the reason for that is we haven't found any progress yet. We haven't found any key items that will give us any unlockable areas. Long swords. Now, Fabul, I typically will still check the weapon shop and the item shop. Illusions can be good. They are one of the useful items. They cast Blink. If there are bosses that are very fast, powerful physical attackers, Illusions will cast Blink and prevent you from getting destroyed. We don't have a ton of money right now, so I'm not going to spend it on Illusions. They're kind of an optional item. But if you have a bunch of money, I would suggest picking up 2 or 3. And we're going to progress up to the King's Room. And one of the other nice things with Fabul is when you go talk to the king, you get healed before the fight, and then you get healed again after the fight. That means that you don't have to worry about healing, like you don't have to use a tent or stay at the inn. Okay, so we have Antlion here. The Fabul Gauntlet is about 1800 hit points, and Antlion is kind of neat because what he does is will try and counter your physical attack. Otherwise, he just uses physical attacks himself. So what we want to do is use magic. If we've got an item here, we can use it. I'm not going to worry about it, actually. We want to make sure we're using our most powerful physical attackers to actually do the attacks, so that we minimize how many times we get countered. We're not going to try and negate it completely. We're just going to try and minimize. Using the power command with Yang actually negates the counter also. And I totally forgot, we can use the Earth Hammer here as an item to do a Quake effect, which will also negate that counter. So yeah, most of the time, the way Antlion works is your goal is to just minimize counters. If you are in a higher attack spot, a really scary endgame spot with Antlion, he's actually really scary because he has a fairly high physical attack rate in general. So the way you kind of want to do that is, that's a good point to use those blink effects that we were talking about. Okay, so he's going to give us the Luca. Luca key unlocks the sealed cave. Got a curse string here. There's some treasure over to the right there but it's really not efficient to go get it. There's also some treasure in the left tower, but again, not really efficient to go get it because we're going to be going to the left tower once we get the access to the Sylph Cave. There's 1 treasure here, and 3 in this hidden passage over here, behind the King's Room. You can't get this until after you've defended the crystal, because otherwise you trigger the cutscene. Most of the time you don't need to get all of that. I'm just kind of doing it to be thorough. I'm not going to pick up every treasure chest, just to be clear. I'm going to get the ones that are on the way, or that are potentially good ones to get. So if you want, this is another town you can stomp at. We'll kind of do this as part of the loop. So Silvera, there's a couple treasure chests. Big bomb's good to get early. Blizzard Spear. Wizard Robe. 3 chests there in the grass, and then we're going to stop at the item shop. Cabins. Glad we did this. So I'm going to pick up, I'm thinking 8 cabins based on where we're at right now. And since we're at a shop, I want to stop and clear out my inventory. This is kind of a random thing, but it's important to clear out your inventory. So Drain Spear, not good, not worth keeping. Gaia Robe, not actually a really good item. You can see there it doesn't actually increase magic stats like something like the Wizard Robe does. So we know we have better gear, let's sell it. Fire armor, crystal armor is kind of weird. It prevents a bunch of status effects. One of the status effects it prevents is Berserk. We usually cast Berserk on our own characters to win better. So we're gonna actually go ahead and sell the crystal armor because it's very expensive and it's not really useful at the end game. We're also gonna sell the ice arrows because the ice arrows, there's not a lot of bosses that are weak to ice, so they're generally not worth it. So, cabins are better than tents. Where did my cabins go? Probably at the bottom. So we're gonna bump that up, and then real quick here, while we're here, we're gonna take a moment to put our coffin and our big bomb up at the top. And the reason we do that is pretty straightforward. We want to remember that we have them. I'm trying to remember if Sid can use the mute knife. Cannot. Okay. So we'll leave him on the bow and arrow here. But we will give him the fire armor. And then we'll bump our items up. Sword. From here, we can continue around. Now, you don't have to go to Silvera. A lot of times you want to come back there either when your inventory is kind of full, or when you're kind of wandering around looking at shops. Next check is ordeals. The nice part about doing this in this kind of loop is that you're also doing the encounters in the order that you're normally doing them in the game within reason, which means that the bosses increase in difficulty as you go. That's an edge. So edge comes in at level 25. We're gonna get rid of Yang. We're not gonna take his equipment. And Yang up. Edge comes in at level 25. He comes in, more importantly, with a bandana, +5 strength, +5 vitality, a black belt, +5 strength, +5 vitality, reasonably good armor, silver gauntlet, pretty good armor, and 2 short swords, which are not great, but good. Edge is really powerful. This entire party is really high level, actually, which makes the early game a lot easier. Samurai bow, we're going to be able to use that instead of the archer bow. Blitz. It's a whip for Rydia. It's usually not very good, although it can paralyze enemies. So we're gonna do Full Moon, and then equip the Mute Dagger, and then we're just gonna equip the Full Moon. Full Moon is more powerful than the short sword, so it's the Mute Dagger. Mute Dagger also inflicts extra damage against mages, which can be good. Full Moon, again, we're using that back row glitch. The reason, by the way, it's important to keep sorting your items is because if you end up with multiple stacks, they take up more room in your inventory. So yeah, save. And now we're going to proceed to the first boss here. So this first boss is the Mylon fight. It's got about 4,500 hit points. And we're fighting Dr. Lugae. Dr. Lugae is actually one of the easier fights because it splits up the hit points between so many different directions. We're going to go ahead and just do some area of effect early, or for this first phase, because it's going to split up the damage. So the damage gets split up between these two. The sub-phase between, if you don't kill them fast enough. So if you kill one and then the other, it can cause, or it can slow, or it can cause a secondary phase to spawn. Balnob is weak. The actual Balnob enemy, not Dr. Lugae, is weak to Sid's hammers because he's a mechanical enemy. The second phase here is also weak to Sid's hammers. He's considered a robot. So, Dr. Lugae counters with gas, which puts your enemies, or which puts your characters to sleep, and uses this poison effect right away. You can see they're 2,300. That's because of that mechanical weakness. Okay, we're gonna have. Oh, he doesn't have heal. So we're gonna actually, for the sake of getting rid of this poison, go back and use a tent. Normally, after such an easy fight, we wouldn't do that. It's your choice, and this is when it gets into that efficiency again. If the first fight was really easy, don't go back and save again, because that'll save you time. Now we use change, because this next fight is a back. Make sure you change your rows before you cross the bridge, because you get back. So this is normally the Mylon Z fight. It's got 3,500 hit points, which is high to start with. Mom Bomb is kind of a unique case because it actually gets extra hit points compared to normal. It's got a pretty high physical attack, or physical defense. Am I remembering this correctly? It's only going to do physical attacks to us, except for that explosion once we've fought it for a little while. So we're just going to go ahead and just attack. And use Lit with Hosea. It's probably going to go ahead and trigger Explosion. We're not going to be able to race it down because we don't have enough damage output. So we're just going to accept that. It adds 10,000 HP because of the way that it's set up. Then we're going to just use a big bomb. Any J item is going to be good against those. If we are in a higher level spot, using an hourglass or the quake spell goes a really long way. Stone, life, and charm. Nothing great. We did get warp a second ago here, and then we also got that lightning spell. Remember to change your party rows back. Now, you do get a heal here. so you don't have to heal up again. And depending on how hard that back attack spot was, save. The general rule is don't save if it was an easy fight, because if you end up in a bad situation, redoing it could be a problem. Okay, there's our hook. That's our way underground. That's what we're looking for. Cecil becomes Paladin. Now, one of the nice things with this is Cecil's a good character to keep here because we know that we're going to get access to the Excalibur. Even if we don't get a Crystal Sword, we're going to have access to the Excalibur. That spot has 1,000 hit points. It is really easy. It is one of the weakest spots in the game. You get healed before and after it, and yeah. The karate boss that we just fought is really scary at high level spots, so it's good to get him out of the way. Except he has a scripted thing where after 2 rounds, a Paladin Cecil can hit him, and he'll say ouch, and it ends the fight. So since we have a Paladin Cecil, we could theoretically use that to our advantage if we needed to, but we didn't need to. So now we're going to walk out. Ordeals is one of the spots where you can't use the exit spell on that first screen, especially. So we're just going to walk out. No big deal. Once Cecil's a Paladin, he's going to get 1,000, or he's going to reset back to level 1, and then his equipment changes completely. We are going to equip the samurai bow here to back row glitch. We don't actually have a sword, so this might actually be his best damage output option right now. So this is another trick here. If you're actually leaving a bow equipped, you actually want to put the arrows in their in their primary hand and the bow in their off hand. Kind of a weird little thing. I also forgot to put the power shirt earlier. Now these aren't great items, but we're going to be able to do better soon. Okay. So from here, we're going to go back across over here to Baron. Now you have the option at this point of going straight to the hook, or to the hook route, or Cave Evelyn. But you also have the one other spot that we can check on the overworld here is the Baron Inn. Now there's some spots where you can loot Baron, but they're kind of out of the way and they're not high value. And what we find here is a Tella. So Tella is really nice to get because, or in a lot of seeds, because of the magic he learns. First spot here is normally the guards. This spot has 500 hit points, a little over 500 hit points. Mylon rather. Generally, if it's a high-end spot, you want to use an hourglass. If it's a low-end spot, you just want to use an area of effect. He's weak to fire, but it really doesn't matter that much in this spot. We're probably going to one-shot him. He counters everything with lightning, so there. And if you kill, the downside is if you kill all of his friends, he's going to start just spamming lightning. So if it's a high magic attack spot, that can be really scary. You can theoretically put up a Star Veil to prevent that damage if you need to. Cure 3, nice. And Fire 2. And then this spot's a little harder. This is normally the karate spots. This is Yang's fight that we just did. And this is the Dark Elf. Dark Elf is usually kind of scary, but has 2 phases, which is nice. Karate, I actually don't have an HP total listed for some reason. However, this is a really low magic spot, if I'm remembering correctly. So this should not actually do much damage. Yep, we're good. So we're just going to toss a cure with Fusoya just for the sake of it. The weak spell that he uses here is one of the scariest things he can do. And then he does me change. Once he changes, he loses his boss status. So you can use status effects on him. And what we're going to do is use the stop spell. So stop spell should prevent him from taking actions, and we can just now hit him a bunch, and he won't be able to attack back. We're choosing to use Lit 2 instead of Fire 3, just because it casts faster. The third level spells take a very long time to cast. Drain, Berserk, and Float. Berserk is really nice with our party. Darkness Crystal. Nice. So that unlocks the moon also. We have access to a lot right off the bat here. Now, we could take a Tella. Tella actually we might take a Tella. I don't think we need 2 Sids. Do Edge, Sid, Cecil, and then a Tella and a Fusoya. Now, Tella is pretty weak. As far as his magic goes. His main purpose early game is utility. He gets a lot of spells like that stop spell that we just used, or exit, warp, stuff like that. He starts with exit. He also starts with blink and cure 2, which is nice. So in most games, so the current flag sets that are getting used in tournament play and that Mark and Tony and I race usually don't get Fusoya. Fusoya is not actually playable. And in flag sets where Fusoya is not available, Tella is a good alternative. He's also really slow, which is nice for being able to have an agility anchor. However, we're good for now. And we're not going to take his equipment. Okay. So, other spots to check here in Baron. We're going to do this shop. So, useful things here. Thor Rages. Thor Rage is a weak lightning attack that's usable as an item. We're going to take this specifically for the Kenazo boss. In order to... he puts up like a barrier of water, and you have to use lightning spells to break him out of it. There's one chest here. Let's see, it's there and there. I'm gonna go ahead and get these because a lot of people do still loot Baron. There's one there. See, this backtracking here that you have to do is why a lot of people don't loot Baron. I sometimes will do this back route where you walk along the backside because this goes to an exit, but I usually don't do the waterway one. Vampire. That'll actually be potentially good if we end up having another boss to fight, but again, we have a pretty solid party. Like, this party is very powerful. Okay, so So at this point, I'm actually going to take a slight diversion to address two other spots. One of them is right here. This is the Mist Dragon Cave. The Mist Dragon Cave, normally you don't have to do. There's a chance when no free key items is on that this is a required boss. This is also so if the Mist Dragon is in its vanilla location, vanilla meaning that it is in the standard location that it starts in, you may have to come here and fight this. The treasure here is actually also slightly higher grade than some other areas because it's out of the way. Lunar Dragons. If that fight was at a later location, I would go into some really in-depth strats. There's a lot of possibilities. The short version is, don't use physical attacks on them. Either use magic. They are undead, so you can use cure magic, as well as they will fire. Or heal up and wait until they get into kind of a secondary phase and start putting up Star Veils. As long as you have at least 2 characters with Star Veils, they will cast a spell on you called Breath that uses a bunch of status effects. When you do that, it will reflect and bounce back at them, and then they will get targeted by the status effects because, for some reason, that reflected ability will ignore the boss bit. So normally bosses are immune to status effects. Normally they are immune to status effects. They're not immune to status effects in their own ability. We're going to jump over here since we're right here to Village of Mist. There's a few items here. This is actually some decent loot. And there's an item shop. Actually, no, there's not an item shop. I lied. There's a weapon and armor shop. Odin Summon. If we get Iridia, that can be good. Odin's usually worth just selling, though. The other reason you'd come back here is if you get the package, or when you kill the Mist Dragon. Coming back to Mist will trigger a cutscene. And when you get the package, you get a sequence that gives you a character. When you have the Mist Dragon, it takes you over to get a free key item. The other boss spot here is Octomom. The Octomom spot is not one I suggest doing early on. In this case, it happens to be the Dark Imps, so we should be okay, but this is a very fast, high physical attack location, and it has 2,300 hit points. That's very high for a low-end area. That's higher than Antlion, that's higher than, some of the Ordeals bosses. So this is one that I prefer doing only as a last resort to see if Mist Dragon is here. Now, we're pretty high end at this point. We've already cleared out a lot of areas, so we're okay. Dark Imps. You can see there I used the life potion on the blank spot where the Dark Imp was. This is the life glitch we were talking about. Regular enemies, when they die, you can use a life potion on them. As they die, and what it will do is resurrect them with 0 hit points. And the reason this matters is because that means that the enemy, or that the game will try and give you the experience for that enemy twice. Not a huge deal, but especially at a higher XP location, killing Dark Imps and then resurrecting them can be very... Dark Imps just attack. They're not considered boss enemies, so you can use status effects, use hourglasses, etc. The other reason to go here is because this is actually a pretty high-end treasure spot. Specifically this cave behind the boss, because you have to fight the boss to get the treasure. If you're gonna fight this boss, you may as well get the treasure. You should not have to do the Cave Mist or the Waterfall Cave spots most of the time. Oh, I forgot to pick up the hovercraft. So, with the hook, you can pick up the hovercraft. This is useful for two things. The important one to us for now is going to... where is it? Dublin Castle. So, Eggart. Two things here. One of them is the Mute Bell. There's a couple enemies where that's useful. I usually get one. And then life potions. Because of that glitch, and also because it's just the most efficient way to pick up a character after they die, picking up somewhere in the realm of 30 plus life potions is generally a good thing. So we're gonna stop real quick here and clear out our inventory because we do have a bunch of stuff. We're gonna sell this grimoire. They're still useful, but we're pretty far into... we basically cleared out the overworld at this point. We're probably not going to use it. Thunder Rod, probably not going to come up. These aren't useful. So Unihorns can remove a bunch of status effects. There is one use for it, and that is you can remove the Berserk status from all your party members. If you're in a spot where you need to stop berserking after you've cast Berserk, that is what it is useful for. Summons sell for a lot of money, and most of the time it's worth it unless you have Iridia. Drain Sword is not worth keeping. I'm not mentioning every single thing. Fire Sword's kind of low end. Heroine Robe can be good if we get a female character like Rosa, but we're probably going to have her on healing duty. We've got this Blizzard Spear if we wanted to go get the Cane, and this might be a good time to do that if we want to get rid of one of the Sids. So the other purpose for Agard is that when we get the Magma Key, you can use that to open the underground. That skips the Cave Emblem route. We're not going to be doing that because we have the hook, not the Magma Key. The hook and the Magma Key are the two ways that you can get underground. So we're going to go back real quick here and do Mount Hobbs with our cane. Save. We haven't saved in a while. I'm being bad about that. No, to be fair, we also haven't had a need to save in a while because we are fairly powerful. So Kane joined. We're gonna get rid of this Sid, I believe. No, that's this Sid. This should be the center one. This should be the top one, I believe. Yes. Takes the equipment? Yes. Kane. Okay. Water Hag. Perfect. Water Hag. Go through the cutscene. It takes 3 hits. And top of Mount Hobbs is a fairly low-end boss. Usually it can be one of the first ones you do. No big deal. So yeah, Kane is actually very similar to Sid, except for he has higher agility and he can equip spears. And he gets jump as a command. Waterhead goes down after 3 hits from the cutscene regardless. That boss on top of Mount Hobbs has a decent HP pool, but that's it. not a super high-end boss spot. There's Exit, there's White, so we have one of the most powerful spells in the game. Since we have Exit, what we're going to do is go loot the back of Mount Hobbs. Now, the back of Mount Hobbs is not super useful most of the time. It's a long walk for a few treasure chests. However, there tends to be some pretty good loot back here. And I'm actually going to stop real quick here and equip the Rune Ring, the Life Staff. We need to equip Pain anyway. Give him the Blizzard Spear. He's one of the characters who can't actually use bows, which is not helpful. We can't back row glitch him, basically. And the Ninja Sword here. I think we're going to equip the Mute Dagger, even though it's a little less powerful, because it does give us that extra damage against mages. And then we're going to give Cecil, I guess let's go Samurai Arrows. It's a slightly more power. And then we're going to use Fusoya to cast Exit. That'll get us back to the front. Generally, you don't want to loot the back unless you have the Exit spell. Same type of thing with going to the deeper areas of the Waterfall Cave. Talked a couple times about efficiency, and that is one of the biggest efficiency things, is learning where you can use the Exit spell and thinking about where you can use it. That's one of the reasons that Tella is so good most of the time. Okay. So we're going to save. And then we're going to do Eblin Castle. My goal here is going to be to kind of finish this overworld section and then take a short break. And then we'll go and do the hook route and the underground and go from there. So Eblin Castle is lots of treasure, lots of high-end treasure, but it's guarded by some really scary enemies. Do we have ice too? No. So several of these chests have traps. We're gonna have Edge use Flame because those skeletons are weak to fire. Make sure Kane doesn't just die. And Stalemen are pretty scary, but they're weak to ice. If you want to level up, you can technically use these areas for that. And we got a white robe. So trap chests themselves are very powerful. They tend to have some of the best gear in the game. They have the highest chance of getting some of the best gear in the game. And the white robe is one of those. Mad Ogres. So we're gonna have, wish we had so we're gonna need life glitch these guys. Because they have pretty good experience. We're gonna rely on Edge, most likely, I think, here to kill them, because they are considered mage enemies. And Edge, as we have discussed, has the Mute Knife, which does extra damage against mage enemies. That's going to be a big XP boost as well. 11,000. Kane only got a couple levels. Again, we have a pretty high level party already. Artemis bow. Okay, that's actually the only bow that's better than the samurai bow Cecil's using. Okay, so there's our swords. So that's the middle tower. So you don't always do emblem. There's no key item here. I'm gonna fully admit I usually get lost in this section. Tiara's good equipment for any female character. Go down between the pots to get these two. Bandana is good. And then it's over here? No. This one must be the... here? Yeah. Yes, I realize that I'm getting mixed up while doing a tutorial. There's a lot in this game. I don't know everything. I'm not like some super pro player by any means. This is a very beginner level tutorial, promise. Okay, that one on the right you have to have. Okay, so I think it is... get this, and then we go up here, and go around. There we go. And then we go down the hole to get this one. The ninja shirt is worth a lot of money. Probably actually should have gotten rid of more while we were there. Let's real quick pop into Cecil's menu and get that Artemis bow on just to make sure that I remember it. We're going to take these heal potions, toss them. If you select the trash can, you can actually go through and toss stuff a little bit more freely. We're probably not going to need this vampire at this point. We'll get rid of the original spear and iron armor. Ice claw we're not going to need. Ice arrows we're not going to need. That's good. And then we'll sell some stuff when we get down into the Ebling Cave. So there's a couple more monster chests here. These areas I probably actually should have healed up first. These areas are pretty scary, depending on where your levels are at. Like, these are not... we're getting to the point where these are not, like, really low-end enemies. We have a really good party with really good equipment, so we're going to be able to take them out. But this is not somewhere you should go early, and there's a reason that you generally skip this unless you need equipment for the hook route. The jump command, by the way. Really? Eh. Jump command does extra damage when you're using spears. It also takes Kane off the battle for a little bit, which can be good. There's a free Excalibur. Okay, Cecil's no longer using a bow. And he has a crystal shield, which is really good. Double check his to make sure that all these are the best things they can be. Probably actually go with like a bandana here. I think there's one more trap chest down here still. Not 100% sure. No. Okay. So yeah. That area has really good equipment and some trap chests which can get you some extra experience. So depending on what all you have done, what your party looks like, your general status, if you need equipment and experience, you go through Eblin Castle. Otherwise, you skip it. And with that, we are going to save here and end the kind of starting section of the tutorial. That's my general route for the overworld. A little bit about the bosses. Most of these bosses are both boss locations, have low enough hit points that the goal is just to do as much damage as you can as fast as possible. You don't have to worry about the detailed strategies as much on the overworld if you have a good party, but there are still little tricks you can use to get past them. So, hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you have, please give me a like and subscribe. Check out the other content on my channel. If you have any questions, if there's anything that I talked about here that you need more information on, please feel free to leave a comment and I'll do my best to answer. I, again, am not an expert on this game. I have played it a lot. I've watched a lot of the tournaments. I've listened to a lot of commentary. I've done a lot of research. I am not somebody who's done the back-end research themselves. So I'll do my best. I will also post links in the description to some of the other resources I use, including my master spreadsheet that I use that has a lot of the information that I talked about, a lot of the numbers that I talked about, and some of the links to the other resources. And as always, have a good one. We'll catch you next time.